The snow had numbed most of her senses by the time she collapsed near the structure. Her limbs burned from strain, her claws stiff, her body screaming for the warmth she no longer had. Valkyrie didn't beg. They endured. They fought. They died in silence. But tonight she broke tradition. She groaned. Then darkness swallowed her. When she woke, it wasn't to the cold bite of ice but to something alien, soft, oddly fragrant, and deeply offensive to her dignity. Blankets. Quilted. Floral. She snarled on instinct and flailed upright, only to be met by a startled shriek from a two-legged male in a stained thermal shirt and mismatched socks. He was holding a spoon and a bowl. "Whoa! Easy, Bigfoot Barbie! You passed out in my backyard," he said, stepping back as a chunk of soup sloshed to the floor. "You're welcome, by the way." She scanned the room, wooden walls, flickering lights, a glowing box emitting faint noises. Shelter. Primitive but safe. The human stank of artificial spices and nervous sweat. He looked harmless, weak, soft, yet he dragged her in, covered her, and didn't seem scared. That made her uneasy. "You touched me," she growled. Her voice cracked. The air inside was too warm, too dry. "I mean, yeah," he replied, unbothered. "You were half frozen in the snow. And naked. Or wearing the world's most realistic costume." She blinked. "You presume much." He shrugged. "Look, I didn't know if you were gonna die or just hibernate. I figured if you were some kind of intergalactic tourist, you'd appreciate not being an icicle. I'm Gary, by the way." She grunted, ignoring the name. Her species didn't bother with monikers unless in battle. Names were weakness. Yet here she was, swaddled in weakness, sipping human soup with clawed hands too numb to grip. He stepped closer. "You okay? Want more soup?" "You kinda inhaled the first bowl." Her eyes narrowed. "I allowed it to touch my tongue. Nothing more." "Oh, well, in that case," he chuckled, setting another bowl beside her. "Feel free to dominate it again." She stared at him. No fear. No threat posture. Just humor? That was more disarming than a plasma bolt. "How long have I been here?" she asked. 2 nights. You snored. Loudly. She considered that. 2 nights in a stranger's care. Not a mark on her, no bindings, no demands. Just warmth. That felt suspicious. He leaned on the counter, scratching his jaw. "I figured you'd bolt once you felt better. Or eat me. Whichever. I've had worse houseguests." "You're not concerned about harboring a potential enemy of your species?" He looked around his cluttered cabin. "Lady, if the galaxy's invading, they're not starting with a guy who podcasts about firewood." Silence stretched between them. She hated how the heat was soft on her fur. Hated how her body betrayed her with ease. Hated most of all how her shoulders sagged at the scent of something as trivial as boiled vegetables and recycled protein powder. "You lost someone?" he asked quietly. She stiffened. "My pack." He nodded, no pity, just quiet understanding. "Yeah. Lost someone too. Not a pack, but close enough, maybe." She eyed the corner where a makeshift memorial sat, 2 mugs, burned photo edges, and a folded scarf. His pack, perhaps, in the human sense. "I'm not staying," she said. "I didn't ask you to." She paused. "But it's warmer here." He smiled faintly. "Tends to happen when you don't sleep face down in a snowbank." Another silence. She should have left. Pride demanded it. But pride hadn't wrapped her in blankets. Pride hadn't shared food. Pride didn't heat the blood like the strange presence of this fragile, scent-drenched human who somehow didn't flinch when she moved too fast or growled too low. "I am Valkyrie," she muttered more to herself. "Cool. I'm Gary." She blinked. "That's not a proper title." "Depends. Around here it means guy who owns an emergency electric blanket and doesn't ask too many questions." He turned away to stir something on a stovetop. She watched his back. Relaxed? Open. Not once had he reached for a weapon or flinched under her gaze. That unsettled her more than if he had. "I will require more food," she said firmly. Gary turned and handed her a new bowl, already steaming. "Already made extra. You look like you could eat a bear," she sniffed. "Give me directions. I'll hunt it." He choked on a laugh. "That's not a challenge. It's a saying." Her ears flicked. "Your species speaks in riddles. Better than grunting and snarling. I could tear out your spine." "Probably," he said, sipping from his mug. "But then you'd be cold again." Her lips curled, uncertain if the sound that escaped was a growl or something dangerously close to a chuckle. Later, when the moon rose, she didn't retreat to the corner. She stayed near the hearth. The fire crackled, the soup settled warm in her gut, and her limbs, treacherous things, refused to move from the softness of the quilted floor pile. Gary dimmed the lights and tossed a blanket toward her. "For when your pride gets cold again." She caught it without thanks, spread it with silent precision, and curled under it. The scent clung to it. His scent. Strange. Unfamiliar. Warm. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. Just for the night. She was not staying. Not yet. She didn't understand why humans covered themselves when they were inside. The cabin was already warm. The fire roared constantly, and the air was thick with heat and that ever-present scent of this Gary, something earthy and synthetic, like musk trapped in laundry. Yet every morning, he layered his body in soft fabrics and handed her one too. "You'll get used to hoodies," he'd said. She hated hoodies. But she wore them. Mostly. He'd given her a drawer. She didn't ask for it. One day it just had a label. "Wolf Girls Stuff." Inside were socks, snacks, and a folded note that read, "No biting unless invited." She didn't understand that one either. Gary insisted on strange rituals. He prepared food with sauces that made her nose wrinkle. He used utensils like weapons of ceremony. And every evening, just after dark, he vanished into the back room to talk loudly to invisible people through his glowing screen. "Recording," he called it. She wasn't sure of who he was performing for, but the way he laughed between segments, half sarcasm, half loneliness, told her the audience wasn't enough. On the third night, he walked in with 2 steaming mugs and a blanket. She was stretched out on his couch, tail draped over the armrest, head tilted to the static coming from the speaker box. He sat next to her and offered the mug. "Tea," he said. "Not poisoned." "Probably." She sniffed it. Bitter. Foreign. But warm. "I still don't understand why you feed me." He shrugged. "You're here. I cook. Feeding people is what humans do when we like having someone around." She narrowed her eyes. "I did not request affection." "Didn't say you did." "Then stop doing that." "What? Making soup and offering comfort like a totem monster?" She huffed and set the mug down. He shifted, pulling the blanket over his lap. "You know, when I first saw you, I thought you were some alien bounty hunter or genetically modified forest ninja. Turns out you're just cold." She didn't respond. "You still don't remember how you got here?" "I remember losing my pack. I remember the shuttle spiraling. After that, darkness. Pain. Cold." He looked at her, really looked. "Sounds rough." She nodded slowly. "Valkyrie are not meant to be alone." "Well, now you're not." The words made her stiffen. Not because they frightened her, but because they stirred something worse, something soft. She didn't like soft. Soft was weakness. Soft was failure. He kept talking. "My last roommate was a cat. Real jerk. Took over the couch, scratched everything I owned, and demanded affection without giving any in return." She stared at him. "Was this cat a female?" "Yeah." "Did you sleep beside her?" Gary blinked. "No. She'd got me." "Why?" She gestured at the blanket he was sharing with her. "You do realize you've initiated nightly pack bonding by thermal proximity?" He raised an eyebrow. "You mean cuddling?" "Yes." Your scent is now integrated into my comfort schema. Your body heat is part of my circadian rhythm. Gary froze. So that's a thing? For my species, yes. You've essentially imprinted. He blinked. Like a baby duck? Like a mate. He dropped his mug. She didn't flinch. Okay, he said, picking up the mug with shaking hands. Deep breath. No pressure. Just maybe dial it back a notch. She tilted her head. You're rejecting me? No. I mean, look. You're cool. Not like cold cool, though that's ironic, but like you're awesome. But I'm not used to being someone's heater mate. You radiate optimal thermal frequency. Thanks, I think. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she shifted closer, barely an inch, but enough for her thigh to brush his. I'll allow you space if required. He laughed nervously. Thanks. Appreciate that. But if I get cold, she added, I will return. Noted. Later that night, he found her in his bed again. Not curled in the corner like the first night, but sprawled across the middle, one arm over the pillow, his hoodie riding up just enough to reveal fur along her lower spine. She didn't acknowledge him when he entered, just made a low, lazy sound that he'd come to interpret as satisfied permission. He stood at the doorway, uncertain. You're in my bed again. She opened one eye. It is warmer. That's because it's mine. Precisely. He sighed, rubbed his face, and walked over. You gonna bite me if I join? I might. He hesitated. Then climbed in. The bed was smaller than it looked with her in it. He lay stiffly, half over the edge, afraid to shift too much. She rolled, arm draping over him. Gary, she whispered. Yeah? You're not a bad human. That's actually the nicest thing anyone said to me this year. I still may bite. I figured. But she didn't. Not that night. Not yet. The days grew colder, but the nights grew stranger. She had stopped counting how many had passed. Not because of injury or confusion, but because her body had stopped reacting to the cold entirely, so long as he was beside her. Gary, as irritating as he was, radiated an obnoxious, infuriating, dangerously addictive kind of warmth. She began to expect it. Worse, she began to want it. Each night she found herself moving closer before the lights dimmed. She told herself it was habit. Instinct. Biology. It had nothing to do with the way his hand brushed her side before sleep. Or the way he mumbled things in his dreams that made her ears twitch. Or how he never recoiled, even when she rolled over and crushed his leg with her weight. She observed him in the mornings when he wasn't looking, singing tuneless songs while brushing his teeth, burning toast, doing terrible stretches in the living room he called yoga. He was soft, undisciplined, and entirely unequipped for war. But she didn't want to leave. The communicator she found in the ruins had started blinking again. A weak distress pulse. Her people were searching for survivors. She didn't activate it. You're acting different lately, Gary said one evening, stirring something questionable in a pot. Quieter. She didn't reply. She was lying on the floor in front of the fire, her nose on her arms, watching the flames. He walked over and dropped beside her, holding a bowl. Hungry? No, she said. But I'll consume it. He handed her the bowl and watched her eat. You're not just here for the soup anymore, are you? She paused mid-bite. You're warm. That's not a no. She finished the bowl in silence, then set it down. I was created for war. Engineered to lead packs. To coordinate strikes. To infiltrate and exterminate. You're not doing any of that now. I'm not. So, are you broken? No, she said quietly. I'm healing. He blinked. That's kind of beautiful. Don't make it sentimental. It's biological. He chuckled. You say that like you're not choosing this. She looked at him, gaze unreadable. Maybe I'm not. That's supposed to scare me? It should. But it doesn't. He stood and walked toward the kitchen, muttering. Girl, like you could kill me in my sleep, but you keep stealing the big blanket instead. She followed. Not because she wanted to. Because something inside her refused not to. In the hallway, she watched him lean against the wall, sipping his drink. You don't know what this means, she said. What means? This, nesting behavior. Thermal imprinting. Shared space. Non-reproductive pairing rituals. These aren't meaningless. Not to my kind. His expression changed. Softer, maybe? Or just more alert. And you think I'm just screwing around? You haven't tried to mate. He choked on his drink. What? Most species would have by now. You've had opportunity. He looked flustered. Yeah, well, you're not exactly low maintenance. She stepped forward. That's not a reason. No, it's not, he admitted. Silence stretched between them. She stared at him. You're afraid. He nodded. Terrified. Why? Because I don't know what this is. And I'm not sure you do either. I know what it is, she said. But I don't know what it means here. With you. Then let's figure it out, he said, voice low. Together. Or slowly. Or however you do it. She tilted her head. You mean like a courtship protocol? I mean like two broken idiots sharing soup and warmth until the rest makes sense. Her ears flicked. Your mating rituals are inefficient. He smiled. They're not meant to be fast. They're meant to be real. Later that night, they lay in bed again, closer than usual. She didn't ask. He didn't speak. Their fingers brushed once. Then stayed together. She didn't sleep immediately. Her mind raced. The communicator blinked on the table, unread. Her people would expect a report. A return. A warpath. Instead, she shifted against the human's side, laid her head on his chest, and whispered, I'm not going back. His arms wrapped around her without hesitation. You don't have to. The distress signal went unanswered for 3 days before going silent. She had expected a surge of guilt when it happened. Instead, there was nothing. Not a pang. Not a flicker. Whatever duty once anchored her had dissolved beneath soft blankets, warm food, and the maddeningly human scent of safety. Of him. He still treated her like something halfway between a guest and a half-feral roommate. Left snacks in a bowl, offered her towels she never used, and filled entire conversations with rambling nonsense about weather and old action movies. He never pushed. Never questioned why she slept closer every night. Never commented when her claws gently curled around his wrist in sleep. But that night, something had changed. She caught him packing a bag. Are you leaving? He jumped. God, you move like a ninja. No, not leaving. Just hiking into town. Need supplies. You didn't inform me. Didn't know I needed permission. She stepped forward. You don't. Then what's the problem? She didn't speak. The silence was answer enough. He dropped the bag on the couch. Hey. I'm coming back. It's just food and batteries, not exile. You didn't say when. I figured I'd be back before dark. You assumed, she said, voice sharp, that I'd still be here. That I'd wait. He crossed his arms. Weren't you planning to? She stared. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, me either. Another silence. Then softer. But I'd like you to keep doing it. With me. She glanced toward the communicator on the shelf, dusty now. Forgotten. I could have returned to my kind. I know. They would have welcomed me. Praised me. Given me rank again. Probably. But I didn't. I noticed. He stepped forward. His hand hovered just above her arm, hesitating. When she didn't flinch, he placed it there gently. You know what I think? He said. I think you didn't just lose your pack. I think you outgrew it. She didn't want to admit it. But her claws didn't retract. Her hackles didn't rise. Instead, she let out a breath that sounded far too close to relief. I've been rewriting myself, she said. Every night beside you, something shifted. You mean like character development? She shot him a look. Sorry. It's how humans cope. She moved closer. Her voice dropped. You've infected me with softness. I'll take the blame. You're fragile. Loud. Clumsy. Not wrong. You snore. Also true. But you're constant. And you smell like safety. He blinked. That might be the weirdest compliment I've ever received. She leaned in, forehead pressing lightly to his. I want to keep waking beside your heat. Even when it's inconvenient. He didn't move. You sure? No. Still willing? Yes. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then he pulled her into a clumsy hug. She allowed it. No snarls. No instinctive pullback. Just warmth. Later, when he returned from town, he found her in his flannel, stretched across his couch, her tail thumping lazily. You came back. I said I would. She tossed a protein bar at him. Don't do that again without telling me. Noted. That night, they lay in bed, not out of need but want. She no longer needed heat. She had adjusted to the climate, acclimated to the surroundings. But still, she curled into him as if the cold had never left. His arm draped over her waist. No hesitation now. I was supposed to be a weapon, she murmured. You still are, he replied. Just aimed a little different. She let out a low, content hum. I've found better use. Yeah? Yes. She nuzzled under his chin. Warmth. He smiled in the dark. You lost your pack, he whispered. But I think you found home. She didn't answer. She didn't need to.